another Water Drop podcast. We're glad that you're with us today, and we appreciate you joining us. My name is Aubrey Spear. I'm the Director of Water Utilities for the City of Lubbock, and I've been here 15 years. And today we want to talk about how we can protect our water distribution system together as a team. And I have with me here today a guest, Barry Stevens. Barry, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am Barry Stevens. I am the Senior Commercial Water Quality Inspector for the City of Lubbock.
Very good. And the reason we have you here is you're the expert. And wanted to basically talk about, we distribute water through almost 2,000 miles of pipeline here in the city of Lubbock. That would extend from here to, past Los Angeles. So with that distribution system, we're delivering clean, pure, safe, and reliable water to the tap. However, there's certain things that our customers can do to help so that we don't contaminate that pure water that we have in our distribution system. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And the first question I have is, if you could explain to us a little bit about what it means if someone says, "Oh, I'm trying to prevent a backflow into our distribution system." What does backflow mean?
Backflow is a term that describes the unwanted and usually unanticipated reversal of flow of water in our water distribution system. Backflow can occur because there has been a fire hydrant being flushed or a water main break, and we cannot contact our customers to let them know to shut their water off or their sprinkler systems off because we can't anticipate when some of these things happen also. Backflow, when it does occur, can allow things you do not want to drink to get into your drinking water.
Very good. And so we also hear sometimes the word, well, we don't want the backflow, nor do we want a cross connection in our system. What is a cross connection?
A cross connection is actually a actual physical connection between the potable water supply and a private line. That cross connection could be connected to machinery, irrigation system. Some of these things actually need domestic water for lubrication or for cooling purposes. There's also a cross connection that occur at a residential house. Most common cross connection is a garden hose. A garden hose can be used to fill a swimming pool. It can be used to spray pesticides or herbicides on your yard, around your house. You can also have a cross connection with an unprotected irrigation system.
Wow. And I guess here in the city of Lubbock, since we have a lot of wells that are drilled, there could potentially be a cross connection between a well and our public water supply, which would potentially introduce risk and contaminants.
Correct. Customers that use well water for irrigation, they have two options. One of the options is to put a backflow prevention assembly at their meter. So if a cross connection occurs on their property between the domestic water that is serving their residents and the irrigation water that is coming from the well, that irrigation water or that well water cannot come back into the city system and contaminate the distribution system that serves our neighbors and other customers in that neighborhood. The other option is that customer could have us come and do a survey of their property to determine that there is not an actual cross connection, where we can explain to the customer the dangers of doing one or making a cross connection sometime in the future.
Okay, so that's one of the questions I wanted to ask is, for most of our citizens, they may want to know, well, how can I help prevent this backflow from occurring? And what you mentioned, a backflow assembly. What are those?
Backflow assemblies are a device that has two spring-loaded valves inside of it, and those valves actually make sure that water only flows one way. So if there is a loss of pressure, a vacuum cannot be created that would allow water that's downstream of that backflow assembly to get back into the drinking water or that private customer's service line. There are two common types of backflow assemblies. The most common is a double check valve assembly, which is mostly used on irrigation systems and some fire lines. And then there is what's called a reduced pressure zone assembly. This is for high health or very hazardous situations where we really want to protect the public water supply from what is downstream of that backflow assembly.
Right. So the most common is the irrigation system needing some type of backflow device because everyone has an irrigation system almost.
Correct.
And that would help prevent pulling any contaminants in.
Correct.
To our system that might be harmful.
The reason that state law requires a backflow protection on your irrigation system is because what you put on your yard. Any kind of fertilizers or herbicides that you spray on your yard, it actually becomes a part of the water that is inside of your irrigation system. That backflow assembly makes sure that you as a homeowner don't end up drinking pesticide or fertilizer coming out of your tap when you're making coffee.
Right. Well, so the backflow device or the assembly, it's a mechanical device. Mm-hmm. So if everyone's required that has an irrigation system to have one of those, or in a commercial setting where one's required for higher health issues, who maintains it? What needs to be done?
Well, the customer is actually responsible for maintaining that backflow assembly. They may be responsible for actually installing one if they don't have one now on their irrigation system. They're required to have that backflow assembly tested on installation and tested once every 3 years on a double check assembly for irrigation system, or once a year on a reduced pressure zone assembly that may be on that irrigation system because there's chemical being inserted into that system downstream.
Okay, so our customers, everyone is required to have one that has an irrigation system.
Correct.
that they're operating. And every 3 years, they're going to get a notice from the city that they need to have it tested to make sure it's operating properly so it's protective of our water supply.
Correct. Because it is a mechanical device, it can fail. Once every 3 years, we're certifying that backflow assembly is in proper operating order and it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. When we send that notice to our customers, they have a contact information where they can look up a certified backflow tester that can, in the city of Lubbock, test that backflow assembly to make sure it is working properly. And that tester will supply the city of Lubbock with documentation that it has been tested.
Very good. So everyone has to do this, not just here in the city of Lubbock, but since it is a federal and state initiative to protect our water supplies, other citizens in other cities throughout the country have to do this as well.
Since 1994, every municipality in the state of Texas has had to implement and put into practice a cross-connection control program, which is to identify these types of hazards and make sure the public water supply is tested. These programs are outlined and set up through federal regulations and state rules and regulations.
Okay, and we're the rubber hits the pavement. We're here locally. We're trying to make sure that we're protecting our water supply and keeping it safe.
And not just protecting our water supply, we're trying to protect our citizens also. We don't want them getting sick, and there's a potential for any type of chemical that is not properly protected to get into their drinking water and accidentally come out of their tap. And that is something the city of Lubbock is trying to prevent.
Yes, and in the last few years, there's been a couple of cities here in the state of Texas that have had industrial type contaminants backflow into their system, which has caused major problems. Not only boil water notices, but also shutting down their entire system until they could get a handle on where the contaminants were.
Correct. If you don't have a proper cross-connection control program where the city or municipality has employees going out and doing a survey of the industrial sites, the commercial sites, or residential sites to determine where backflow protection is required and making sure it's installed, When a backflow incident occurs, you have no idea where that contaminant came from and got into the water system, which results in cities having to shut down or completely deny their citizens access to water until they can locate the severity of the contamination event.
Very good. Like I said, you've got a lot of experience in this, and we appreciate you explaining this to our audience today. We appreciate you being here, and our goal is to protect our water supply, which means we're protecting you so that we have safe, reliable water that comes to your tap that you can enjoy on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for being here today.